Hello again. Yeah, I thought I'd do a video and show something that I on my of my hi-fi system that I've not gone into much detail in previous videos, and that is my subwoofer. Now, last night I was sat in my listening position, which is where the camera is positioned at the moment, and listening to music, and I've recently moved my system slightly because I work from home now. Um, I'm using a space within this room for my sort of my work stuff, and it's just by default I've actually moved sort of the chair more sort of in a different area, and I've managed to bring my main speakers slightly further into the room, and I was really enjoying what I was hearing last night. It's just the sound stage and the sort of the imagery of what I was listening to was just so realistic, and I also began to realise how important a part my subwoofer was adding to my system. So I thought I'd do a video and just explain and show it and how I've managed to set it up. So going back some time ago now, because I've had the subwoofer, I don't know, maybe a couple of years perhaps, coming up to or whatever, around about that. Um, I was always sort of curious as to what a subwoofer could add to my system. And I had heard systems where subwoofers were in place, some good, some not so, in my opinion. And that would have been simply to do with room size, suitability, or settings. And just, I would say, more likely to be that the settings weren't optimized. But so I went and bought a subwoofer after doing a lot of research, and my main goals around this was quite simple, really. I wanted a subwoofer to be able to support the bass that my system was already making. I wanted it to retain the tunefulness of the bass that my system was already producing, and I wanted it to also maintain the realism then of what I was listening to in terms of the sound of the instrument, the quality of the instrument, the timbral quality of the sound coming through, all that realism. I wanted that to be also maintained. So what I didn't want is what I'd heard in some systems. I didn't want a bloated sort of bass sound. I didn't want resonance of bass sort of bouncing around the room. And I didn't want a one note type bass system which just wasn't tuneful. That wouldn't have been right for me. So having done a lot of research, I decided on a BK subwoofer, and the one I bought is a BK XLS 200 Mark II. Now, the one I've got has a speaker which is a down-firing speaker. You can get them where they sort of the speaker faces into the room. The one I opted for, it has a speaker underneath the actual unit, and it basically a speaker pointing to the floor. So that's the one I opted for, and so I've got it connected also at high level. So there's a Nutric speak-on connector which connects into the back of the subwoofer, and the other end of the cables, they connect into the speaker speaker terminals, and at the back of my amplifier, as per the instruction manual that was provided. Very easy setup, very easy to do. And then it came to getting it set up. And, I've had a lot of fun trying to get it to optimize in my system. It's been a very, very worthwhile project and exercise then, because I've managed to sort of like learn what I liked, what I didn't like, where I was going wrong, and learn from my mistakes. Now, a lot of people, I know people will comment and say, well, you can't just set it up by ear, you have to get DSP software, and you have to get a laptop and mics all connected up, and that's the best and only way you can do it. And that may, I'm not going to dispute that at all. That wasn't for me. I wasn't going to go down that way. I wanted to try and work with it, work with my system, work with it in my system, and have a lot of fun getting it all set up. And at no point has it been frustrating. It's just been, I think it's been an education really, and I've managed to be able to, or I think, achieve the goals that I first set out to achieve. So yeah, and as I've had to move my system around a little bit more, I've found it easier as well to be able to adjust and to get it integrated into my system just as well, with my speakers in a different position to what they were originally. So it's been great fun. I'll show the subwoofer and just get the camera and show where it's currently positioned and so forth. Right, okay. Now then, there is the subwoofer. They said it's a BK XLS 200 Mark II 275 watt sub bass system. Now, it's extremely, in my opinion, it's extremely well made, really nicely finished. It's, I believe it weighs around about 17.5 kilos, so it's quite a weight. And so looking at these little sort of settings at the back here, as I said, I use the high level method of connecting. So basically the low level options are both turned completely off because they are not used. So what I'm using basically is the gain, the frequency, and the phase. So if you're looking at the gain, you'll notice I got the gain set at, I'd say it's between 1/4 and 10/2 on the dial. So it doesn't sound a lot, but you can certainly feel the actual driver of the unit working, and it certainly integrates really well with my speakers at that level. The frequency, rather interestingly, I got it set at its lowest level, which is 40 hertz. Now, I believe the idea behind the frequency is that it should be set at the level which your main speaker's bass sort of rolls off. Now, I've tried it at different sort of settings, and to my ears, it works best having the subwoofer frequency set at 40 hertz. The phase is currently on 0 degrees. It can be swung all the way around to 180 degrees. Again, in my experience, at 0 degrees works best. So that is how I've got it set up there. Just get the camera back to where I had it. There we go. Back again. So yeah. So in terms of like the positioning of it, at the moment I've currently got it positioned whereby it's sort of behind the left hand speaker. That's where I feel in this current setup it sort of worked well. Now there are different ways of setting it up without having to use any kind of software, and one method I've heard of and I've tried and I can understand where it might work is whereby the subwoofer is positioned in sort of the area where you sit, and then play a suitable piece of music, and then go around the room on hands and knees, and then work out where the bass response in the room was at its optimum level. And that typically would be around about the area where you would then position the subwoofer. I can understand how that works, and I have tried that. And in my setup, that kind of where the bass is best is around about where the subwoofer is positioned. But all in all, it's been great fun, and I've really enjoyed the whole sort of like exercise of getting it to work in the room. It's been very interesting too, and just show some music now actually, and more specifically music which has sort of helped me to try and work out the settings of the bass of the subwoofer and to get it optimized. Now here we are, I'll show one. This is Radiohead Kid A. Yeah, I mean, when I didn't have it set up properly, there was too much sort of bass being driven in the room. It was very directional, which, I mean, clearly didn't have it right. And then I've then had to adjust positioning and then work out sort of the location of where it needed to be, and then blend in the settings to sort of actually supported the bass that my speakers were currently or already producing. And that's been a really useful album for that, and a really good album too. Another one on CD is Random Access Memories by Daft Punk. Now, an absolutely superb album, and a really good listener. I really enjoy listening to this album. Very familiar with it now, and even more so the amount of use it's had in helping me to get my my system to optimize. A very, very terrific album, and again, a lot of examples in here which I have used then for optimizing my subwoofer positioning and setup. I listen to quite a bit of jazz. It's something I'm really interested in. For instance, Charles Mingus. Oh yeah, you know, again, important to me that one of the goals I was going to hoping to achieve, which I've managed to do, and indeed is the leading edge of the note. Then it's so that it doesn't take anything away from that. It enhances the actual fullness of the sound. And interestingly, it's not all about bass, it's about mid-range. So the mid-range is kind of a lot, I feel, that little bit more fuller, a little bit more fleshed out, and it just adds so much more to the presentation of what I'm listening to. Another favourite of mine, Joan Armatrading, Me, Myself, I, Marcus Miller on bass on this album. And I mean, you know, that opening track with that huge sort of drum sound, and then the bass kicking in, and it's just like, again, thought the definition of the finger then playing the note, that leading edge of the note, cutting through the mix, all important really for me. And yeah, what we got here, well, there we are. When that is I mean, I've had this album for years. Pink Floyd, The Wall, instantly recognisable album. You know, it's, and I pick out a track on your Comfortably Numb. There you go. That start of that track where you feel boom, boom, that bass sound coming in, the fullness of it, as well as the punchiness of the bass, the way that the notes are kind of starts and stops and starts and stops. Superb. Well, you know, there's loads. Oh, here we are. This album, I mean, I know it so well. It's just Miles Davis kind of blue. You know, a fantastic album. And again, for me, the atmosphere, it's that, you know, when I put my music on, it's almost like a sense of occasion then. So I plan, say, on listening to some music, might be on my way home from somewhere, and manage to get in the house and sit down with a cup of tea and thinking, wow, time to listen to some music, you know. I'm thinking, well, what am I going to play? And then it's like that, you choose something as good as this, and then it's that sense of occasion of putting the record on and then sitting down and then witnessing that wonderful session that was put together on this album, and just capturing the atmosphere as well as the musicianship, just the all-round package really. Again, when I used, just to be sure I was that enjoyment was still there. I mean, Peasants, Pigs and Astronauts by Kula Shaker, you know, they're a fantastic band. And the opening track, the bass, the notes, the you can almost, it's like a physicality then, where you can actually tell those fingers are just plucking those strings, and the speed at which the play is, the actual bass playing is being played, and that, and you know, the Kula Shaker albums, fantastic. Talk is another band I listened to whilst getting everything set up. And, you know, I went through my loads of different sort of genres of music. Robert Wyatt, Rock Bottom. I'm really interested a lot of the so kind of the Canterbury scene, progressive rock music of like the late 60s and early 70s, and that particular era of Soft Machine, Caravan, Hatfield in the North, and you know, Robert Wyatt was a prominent sort of musician in that particular era, and his voice on this album just absolutely fantastic in terms of the way it sort of, the mid-range just brings the voice out into the room, and it's such a good experience listening to what is a fantastic album. So yeah, there you are. Anyway, so thanks for listening, especially those that have listened to the very end of the video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I will do another video soon. Thanks again. Bye bye.